What is up, peoples? What is up, peoples? What is up, peoples? I am here back with a quick one. If you caught me on Twitter, I told you I was going to go live real quick. I'm not going to make this long, but what I want to talk about is what does Xbox long-term success, what it should look like for them and their gamers. Okay, um, as the room fills up to the 5 people that'll probably join. I hope everybody's having a good morning, having a good Valentine's Day. You know what I'm saying? Before we hop right into this, because I'm not going to make this long, because I do have to go into work. I just had to go in late and take care of some things, and I wasn't expecting to do this, but I threw something together real quick. Um, I hope everyone's having a good Valentine's Day. My wife and we're planning to make a move, so I was like, we're gonna cut down expenses. You know what I'm saying? And our anniversary was last month, and I was like, we'll do something then, and we'll make that Valentine's Day too. And she's like, okay. My wife, you got to give her flowers, candy. You got to throw rose petals at her feet every 5 minutes. So she was a little bummed out. She thought she wasn't getting anything, but I surprised her with some flowers. So, chivalry ain't completely dead. Graphic God, what's up, bro? Graphic God. Hey, man, we got to chat if you get a chance. I know you busy, bro. But MM2K really needs your help. I got laughed at yesterday. While we're letting the chat fill up too, I just want to give a big shout out to my friends at Xbox Uncut. Me and Griggity was on the panel as guests last night, man, and we had a blast, man. It was so fun. So big ups to Dustin, Will, and Steph. Eric didn't show up, but big ups to them, man. We really had a good time, and we were talking everything Xbox. The link to that show should be below under mentions, and it's part of the reason why I'm coming on here. And as I mentioned on Twitter, I'm going to do this a little bit different. My last few shows, I've been kind of elevated in how I've come at Xbox. I'm passionate about what I do. So I come at them, and you know what I'm saying. We're gonna tamper this down a little bit because I gotta go into work, and I don't want to. I don't want to, come in there super packed full of energy. But it's gonna be entertaining nonetheless because we got a lot of good stuff to cover. But big ups to the people watching right now, and thank you, Graphics God. Like I said, man, if you get a chance, bro, we gotta help. You gotta help a brother out, man. I'm out here drowning, man. I need some services. But we'll talk later. With that being said, big ups everybody. It's your boy MM2K back again with another one. So not only with this being Valentine's Day, let me do this. I want to tweet this out too. Not only with this being Valentine's Day, but we've had the NDA or whatever you want to call it for Crackdown, right? We've had that finally lifted, and you officially have reviews coming out for the game. And let me know, guys, if you can't hear me. All right. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. All right. We're not going to sugarcoat it. It's not looking good. We've even had situations where Xbox diehards, Windows Central, guy there that writes for that article gave the game a 60. All right. And this is someone that has been, and I'm not going to get into the whole nitty gritty because that's not what this video is about. But this is someone that has gone back and forth with Z as far as interpretation of the game and where it stood at. They really put themselves on the line for the sake of this game and for the sake of the efforts of Microsoft and Xbox. And it turns out that the thanks that was reciprocated from our friends at Xbox was not equivalent to how this person put their neck out on the line for that product. So that says a lot that they gave this game a 60 in my mind. and I think it holds a lot of weight. Hold on, something's going on. For some reason, everything that's going on in my chat is not showing. I apologize, guys. Okay, Will Sinks, what's up? 62 Metacritic for life. What's up, man? Had a great time last night. All right, so we know the scores are out, right? But beyond that, like I said, this is bigger than Crackdown. Crackdown, I think, is like the icing on the cake. Big up to Cyrus Burke with the eyes like, oh, what's going on here? I'm doing this a little different, man. I'm doing this a little different because I want to engage in a full-fledged conversation. I don't want to just talk at. Because here's what happens. When you talk at Microsoft, for lack of a better term, I don't want to use the word sensitive, but they're siloed in some ways. Okay? And when you talk at Microsoft, there's not ability to bounce off the sharpness of your message and decompartmentalize that and say, hey, all right, this is just some passionate words coming at me, and I'll show you examples of such. You know, and everybody has flaws, so you know we're not going to clobber them. They tune you out, and this is a case like I always tell my kids that because they ask me like, Dad, why are you so worked up when you're talking to us about certain things? And I'm like, you got to understand, like think about it this way. Say if we're at a park and you guys were playing somewhere, and say it was a national park somewhere, and I saw a grizzly bear just go into a cave. We're at one of those parks. And then I see you running towards the same cave wanting to play. And I'm like, hey, hold on. See, I said I wasn't going to get worked up, but, you know, just for this example's sake. Hey, hold on. Don't go in that cave. I see a bear there. You know what I'm saying? And you're still like, oh, whatever, old man. And you're going into the cave. You're being dismissive. You know, I know what's at the other end of that cave. I'm trying to warn you, and you're blocking me out against your betterment, against my betterment, because, of course, I don't want you getting mauled by no bear. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I get excited. Now, if I'm telling you not to go in a cave with a bear in it, of course you can understand my excitement, and you can decompartmentalize that and say, okay, that's why Dad was worked up. On the flip side of that, Microsoft can't understand the passion that people have for games. Like, I'll give you an example of why I'm a fan of Xbox gaming a little bit. Xbox gaming, you know, they don't understand that passion, and they automatically tune some of the responses, if they are a little sharp, as fanboyism, toxic, stuff like that. So I want to take a different approach because there definitely is some gaps in understanding with this turnaround Xbox is trying to do, and I think it's hell important, and it's viable to the future of the brand because of these things that they want to do. All right. So let me get into this. Like I said, I don't have a lot of time. So I've done several videos spanning the whole Crackdown 3 debacle, right? First off, there was the bots handoff to IGN. For better or for worse, whether you think the game is worth the 60s they're getting or not, the handoff to someone to the people like IGN that have done you dirty before and to who your fan base considers not the best stewards of your games is not the smartest thing to do when you say that you want this to be seen in the light of a Halo Crackdown, or, you know what I'm saying? I mean, a Halo, Forza, and a Gears, right? For better or for worse, whether you think the game is good or not, I think we all can admit that if I'm showing off a BMW and how fast it can drive, then I'm going to have someone behind the wheel that can see the road, right? It's as simple as that. And I'm not trying to be funny. Anything else is detrimental to how this thing is marketed, the light and the perception it's seen in. Now, what that IGN showcasing of Crackdown 3 did do is it shown that there was issues also with essential elements in gameplay. And then you had the release of other essential elements in gameplay, like friend lobbies was missing. And now you have today where there seems to be an onslaught of mediocre reviews from Xbox fans, and big up to my Xbox Uncut brethren, where big ups to Steph, keeping it real. He said, "Hey, are we gonna hit down to 50 with this thing? Like, is this gonna be the worst rated, higher echelon Xbox title yet? Who knows?" And again, we can't claim media bias because Xbox diehards, like I said, Windows Central, they're giving it 60s, you know? So, Randolph Thor, excellent video. I'm going to talk about some of the points gave it a 6.5. Now, why is this even important? Why caring about this as an Xbox fan? Why is this even important? And to break down why this is important, I want to talk to everybody about the different stages of the current Xbox fan, which includes myself. I've been through all three of these stages. Stage number one is confusion. Confusion. It's simple as that. Like, at the beginning of this generation, I was confused why there was so much hoopla about 180p difference and a few frames per second difference between the two boxes. Because it's just something that's tangible, that looks more exciting on paper. But believe you me, as somebody that, I don't want to say technical test, but as someone that went to, like, at the beginning of this generation, as I was catering my decision, because I was happy with the 360. You know, and I'm a gamer. I'll get whatever was ever. I don't own a flag anywhere else. So I'm like, oh, if the PlayStation 4 is that much better, maybe I'll make my investment there first. You know what I'm saying? Because at that time, I was contemplating whether I was going to even stay on console. You know, it seemed like to me that PlayStation didn't really make the games that catered to me. Xbox was foregoing their AAA status and focusing on Connect. And I was a performance buff at the time, and I had just got BioShock Infinite. That was the first game that I got on my super power buffed up PC at the time. So I said, well, and then I looked at the Division. I mean, I am the way the Division was advertised, and then I like Destiny. I figured, Destiny was eventually coming to PC. It took a lot longer than I expected, and then the Division, I thought I would be focusing most of my time on that. I was going to go PC. So if I was going to make any investment console-wise into the next generation, hey, it could have been PlayStation. Most of my time was going to be spent with multiplats anyway. You know, so I was testing both out. Did I really want to make that switch over to that ecosystem that I really wasn't favorable for? But if it was that much better of an experience for me, I would have done it. And as I tested both of those out, what I basically did is I have a couple friends that work at a GameStop. One is a manager. I've talked about him before. We would hook up the PlayStation. They had Sony at the beginning of this generation. There were Sony 1080p TVs that were like at all the GameStops, at least in my area. I don't know if this was nationwide. So we would take the Xbox, we would take the PlayStation, hook them up to the same TVs, plop in the same games, check out the performance to the naked eye and see what was going on. And except for at the time Call of Duty Ghosts, I did for those early releases within the first year or so, I didn't see much of a difference that where I felt compelled to, if I did make a console next generation investment, that I would make the swap. Because there was still the controls, there was still the security on online that played a big part with me, and that was me. So I was confused. That was the first part. Confusion. Why is all this hoopla? You had Kojima out there talking about 1080p makes you a better gamer. This is all about an extra 180p, and a couple of frames that really were not that visible to the naked eye. So I was confused. So then that led to the second stage of being an Xbox fan. Defensive. I was very defensive. You looked at the IGN, you looked at the GameSpots, you looked at the GameStops where my manager friend told me, he's like, man, look, we're getting told in a lot of these calls that Xbox hasn't done proper product placement. Sony has with the PlayStation 4. We don't know how to pin down Xbox. All we know what to do is to tell people, well, hey, if you like Halo and Gears, when those games come out, that's why you buy an Xbox. PlayStation was hitting them with lines and gimmick, quotes and stuff like that. 1080p makes it a better game. They were helping us out market their product. So that's why we favored the product. Hey, it was better performing. There is nothing but so we weren't lying there. There's nothing but multiplats out here to praise. So, and then we're getting all the profitable and the marketable slogans only from PlayStation. So that's why they got the favoritism, even from the GameStops. But then you had people in the media that just loved to row for PlayStation anyway, because that's what they grew up with. That's where their emotional tie is with. So when they saw PlayStation at the top, they it was a great what do you call that? This damn phone. It was a great underdog story for them, bouncing back from the previous gen, and they went head first into it. I mean, I've never seen at the beginning of a generation you had game publications rating which was the best system before games were even released and it got into the consumer's hands. You had nothing to really judge that off of at the time, but they were doing it. So I got defensive, like a lot of Xbox people. Hold on, is my thought. This is the difference in the performance isn't that grand to the naked eye. The Xbox has value. Now, if you prefer the PlayStation 4, fine. That's okay. Not a problem with that. But to make, at this stage of the game, to make the Xbox seem like that anything put into it, it automatically turns it to crap, was over the top. And that's where you start attacking the IGNs and the GameStops for a lot of their effery, for lack of a better term. But then, anything anti-Xbox, because you feel like it's overkill, you start getting that urge to want to rebut back. But in the scheme of things, right, this is where the last stage where I'm at, it starts to come to fruition. But then after that, you start realizing some things. You start seeing some things where, even though Quantum Break got a bad shake, there's a new regime in town. CEO is saying some things that are troubling. The new guy that's in charge of Xbox, even though he's likable, and we gave him the benefit of the doubt because he's so likable, and the words that he says, they sound so genuine, you start to see trends. You start to see patterns. And I've covered these patterns. I'll go over them real quick. I don't want to, again, this is not an attack on anybody. This is just, it is what it is. Here goes, for example, here goes one. When the infamous Eurogamer interview, where they're like hounding Xbox. Okay, where are your AAA? We get that you talked about the Xbox One X, but where's the software that really shows this hardware to shine, right? And you see things where Phil says he's they ask him, they say, okay, you had a lot of games, which was great, but where was the big first party game announcements? Phil Spencer. So our first party game announcements on stage, Forza 7, interviewer. Okay, but we know about Forza. It was a known quantity, that one. Well, Phil Spencer. Well, it was announced. You can't take that away from me, but it was announced. Ori, which looked fantastic. Super Lucky's Tales. Did you see that? I mean, again, not to beat a dead horse, but just so for context, you had a lot of great games, which was great. But where was the big first party game announcements? And in response to that, you put Super Lucky's Tale in that conversation. So, reasonably so, the Eurogamer person said, I'm not talking about that. Phil Spencer, perplexed. You're not liking my answer? Okay, well, what do you want us to show? Perplexed and agitated, right? Like I said, you know what I mean. AAA big Microsoft first party games. And then the response to that is, well, you think Sea of Thieves, is that right? Now, again, not, I'm, a lot of stuff that I do for the sake of entertainment is just for that, for the sake of entertainment. I'm not mad at anybody that loves Sea of Thieves. You can love whatever you want. I don't care. I just want to make sure that Xbox continues. They're not doing a bait and switch. They didn't bring me here. They didn't use me financially to heavily invest into their ecosystem, make me promises that they're not willing to keep. That's bait and switch. It's not good business practice. It's perceived, again, for lack of a better term, it's perceived as slimy. I'm not saying Xbox is slimy. I'm just, perception is 9/10 of the law, and this is a dialogue with Microsoft. It's perceived as slimy. So you then come to stage 3, which is realization that, hey, everything is not cracked. It's not what it's cracked up to be. That you have somebody that has, or a group of people that have a narrow focus on what not only games, but the game community should be. They are siloed in the information that they're digesting to help keep this robust, but with the guardrails that they want. But they're being siloed, or they're closing themselves in a box and not listening to the community in totality, including those that brought them here, that make this even possible. And they don't know what they don't know. Like it or not, Super Lucky's Tales is not AAA content. Like it or not, Sea of Thieves is not AAA content. Especially at the state that it released in. When people think Xbox, they think of AAA or nuanced experiences, hardcore experiences that have been ported over to console that may have originally been on a PC or whatever, that's been ported over to the ease of console, particularly in the sci-fi shooter realm. That's what you're known for. Now, of course, reaching 2.1 billion gamers, you got to be a little bit more diverse. There's nothing wrong with that. But your claim to fame is to build upon that, not to purge that. Because you have to, just like I come to the realization that something's wrong in the siloed approach, my Xbox, you have to come to the realization that you need a push in order to make this successful. You need a push from the people that brought you here. You can't just show up to the party and say, hey, guess what we got? We got some nice people in our community. We got some gameplay that's going to be catchy. Here it goes. Because if that's your approach, you're going to get lambasted. You're going to get flame broiled. You're going to get destroyed out here. Look at what's going on with Crackdown. And then your word has to be your bond. You had the head of Xbox come out and say, I want Crackdown to be revealed in so many words. I'm paraphrasing here, but revealed. And the same guys as Halo, Gears, and Forza. And we're getting this. This is 60s from diehard Xbox people. Xbox is banking that everybody's going to remain in stage 2, which is defensive. No. You all eventually are going to get here at stage 3 like I did. You're going to get here. And when you get to the realization stage, and we're out there crying foul, that is going to cause reputational risk for Xbox. And it's going to spell disaster for the brand. And if that happens, This is where it's really important. This is where I hope it hits home, because I know I can just from my experience, I kind of know what Phil's up against here. But if that's what happens, if there's reputational risk, and that reputational risk spills over to financial risk, where you're not making the year over year growth that you're getting because now your name is severely stained like how it was before this new regime came in, where your stock price and your revenues wasn't at profitable margins like they are now under Satya. When Xbox gets back to that old bomber state of profitability, which wasn't good, hence why Bomber and his people are gone, whether we like them or not, Satya is not going to tolerate it. And the gaming business will cease to exist, period. It's another way to put it. Another way to put it. In the current economical and business climate that there is, and knowing how Satya came on the scene, went to all the individual businesses and said, hey, and this ain't coming from MM2K, this is coming from multiple sources. Explain to us why you should exist. I know he had that conversation with you too, Phil, or Terry, or not Terry, but he's had that, he's had that conversation with your sector. And that's where the idea of, mobile and stuff like that and across multiple devices came up from, because Satya's core plan is cloud services. And it's a hit right now financially, at the very least. But gaming is a different animal. Mindshare is very important. And you can't just uproot your community and think that, there's more people out there and more of them are more casual, so that'll drown out the hardcore. No, it's not the silent minority, but it's the very loud vocal minority, I'm sorry, which will drown out the casuals, because the casuals actually look to the hardcore for direction. A casual doesn't say, yeah, I'm casual. They want to be hardcore, but they only are hardcore at a fair weather's length of time. But that's what makes them casual. So you got to understand that. Now, there's a way we can fix this problem. So Microsoft can still reach the direction that it's trying to reach, but then it not only works for them, but it works for the gamers. There's a way to do this. Like I said, we're going to do this a little differently. I don't want to just bash. Let's talk solutions. But before I get into that, let me get to the chat here. So my people in the chat. King Player, what up? Power of the Cloud. And he says stage 1 damage control, stage 2 damage control, stage 3 damage control. What's up, Devil Shooter? Happy belated birthday, man. I appreciate you hanging with me during this stream. The last stream that I did. And if you guys can do me a favor, retweet this out if you can. But I'm gonna start wrapping this up, because these solutions are simple and easy. It's just that we have to have the powers to be that make the decisions at Xbox more willing to be more in tune with the community as a whole. Hey, D Almighty says Smooth is mad as blank. Who's he mad at though, D? Mac, what's up? What's up, Mac? Appreciate you. Who's he mad at, D? Is he mad at Xbox? Or is he mad at people expressing their opinion? Because being mad at people expressing their opinion is the problem and how we got here. And nothing against Smooth. I'm not going to attack Xbox, but I'm going to say this. Nothing against Smooth. I wish the brother no ill will. I wish him the greatest success. But I think that Smooth has to stop daydreaming about the day that he's going to be sharing an office with Phil, and stop and get out of stage 2. And I'm not trying to be mean, but it's irritating how we stick our flags in the ground with these companies like we're getting paid. You're getting paid to create content, but you can create honest content and still get paid too. Unless you have unless you have a Microsoft check, there's no excuse for that, and that's how we're here. But you got to really get yourself out of stage 2, and more people are doing that, and they're coming to 3, which is realization. Will Sink says, you think Crackdown 3 had a set limited budget during Myerson and Phil then injected more cash into the project, but it was a little too late? To be honest with you, Will, I think here's what I would like for everybody to do. I would like for everybody to understand the financial situation in relative market terms. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, I think we got to understand Terry Myerson was just an ends to a means. Satya Nadella has a lot of tenure at Xbox, right? So he didn't just like work on servers and they just said, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, you the CEO. No, they didn't do that. Satya Nadella is knowledgeable of the ins and outs and the politics of Microsoft, hence why they hired him to clean it up. So there were, and which was widely reported, there were efforts for many of the brass to push Xbox out. They thought it was too cost heavy, it caused too much problems to keep, and it just wasn't worth the effort to sell off the business. A lot of people, and in Satya Nadella, to be honest, this is all truthful, he did not consider gaming core at the beginning, right? So knowing all this, we got to ask ourselves, and then this is where I tell you guys, we got to have a business sense to look at all this, look at it from 5,000 feet. If knowing all that, if Satya Nadella wasn't just picked by any, meeny, miny, mo, he knew the politics. He knew that there was the brass that wanted to get rid of Xbox, and he knew Terry Myerson was part of that brass. Why would he put Terry Myerson in charge of Xbox? Why would he? Satya Nadella's not a dumb guy. So with that being said, if you know somebody is not favorable of a particular brand and you put them in charge of it, then you're doing it to put up some guardrails at the very least. If not to transition them out because you believe the same thing. But let's play devil's advocate. Let's just say that he did it to put some guardrails up because he knew that Terry Myerson wasn't a fanatical Xbox lover, so therefore he was going to put roadblocks up for a lot of their financial investments. He was going to trim the fat at the very least. So if that was Terry's purpose, and Satya knew that he would do that, can we focus, I don't want to say blame, but can we focus the reason for a lot of these cuts on Terry Myerson or Satya Nadella? Again, Terry Myerson was just an end to a means. So to answer Will's question, everything had a limited budget. And it was told through Terry Myerson, from likely Satya Nadella, you got to make a choice, Bubba. You get this. We're focusing on cloud technology. We want everything to work with the cloud. This was evident. This is well documented that Satya went to every line of business and said that, including Xbox. It angered many of the brass at Xbox. Some left, some Satya tossed the hell out. So Phil was approached, and it was, you're either going to get your console or you're going to make further investments in development. What's it going to be? And knowing Phil, and again, let me say this. Knowing Phil, a big focus of his, what he thought was a big Achilles heel for Xbox was its perception. And he thought part of the best way to tackle that perception was not only to start being nice to everybody, be nice to everybody, but to kill a lot of the arguments that people were having. And the arguments that people were having at the time was Xbox's lack of power. So he went all in on the power. instead of the software. Problem is that Phil did not know what he doesn't know. He did not understand the dynamic. It wasn't just that people were compelled to say these negative things in the press about Xbox because of power. The power was not that grand. People were compelled to say these negative things in the press about Xbox because they just didn't like Xbox and they didn't like Microsoft. 180p is not that big of a difference. So when he went all in on the power, they just flipped it to software. Now he's stuck. Now some of you might hear that and say, oh, well, it's not Phil's fault. Look, he gets paid the big money to be able to view things properly from 5,000 feet. And you can only do that by knowing where your strong points are and, more importantly, where your weaknesses are. I joked on my last video that I type 1 letter per minute. I'm the worst typer in the world, but I have to type stuff all day. I got to send analytics. I got to send reports. I got to send information on staff 24/7. So if my boss sends me an email and says, hey, MM2K, which that's not what he called me, but he says, hey, yo, I need to know, like, for instance, my boss came to me yesterday. We're transitioning some functions that you're in charge of for more efficiency, and we're swapping them out with this. I want you to do more analytics in the long term. In order for me to swap you out with this other stuff, I need you to break down to me deadlines, the time to process, blah, 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 this and that. These were over 30 functions, and he said, I got a meeting in 45 minutes. These were over 30 functions that I had to splice out in 5 different columns in full detail. Deadlines, what the deadlines are for. Not only that, what does the functions consist of? Who does these functions? Why? When was the last procedural update? I had 45 minutes to gather this stuff. Meanwhile, I got staff that comes to me every 5 minutes. Now, if I type at 1 letter per minute, can I do that? No. I went to my team lead. I need a huge favor. XYZ person needs this, and they need this in 45 minutes. I'm also working on this project that only I can do. Can you please type it up? Here, I'll type up one example for you. Fill out the rest because you have the knowledge base to fill out this information too. Send it to me. I'll skim over it, make adjustments where I need to make it. I'll send it off to them. Everybody will be happy. We'll still be employed tomorrow. And she did it. And I was able to send it. That's knowing what I don't know. So if you're in a position where you had to go all in on the hardware and you made it, and you may not made the best decision. Don't get me wrong. I love my Xbox One X. But I think there should have been a balance. There should have been a balance of hardware and software with it. But if you went all in, let's just say you misjudged something, happens all the time. If you misjudge something and you got to rapidly make it up, and your ability to understand the type of software that'll close that gap quickly, if you don't have those capabilities, that's where you go to people that can do it better than you. As we always say, work smarter, not harder. And sitting there directing Sea of Thieves and looking over this AAA quote-unquote content, Super Lucky's Tale, and going in on that because you want to change the dynamic of the community, and you think that because people now like you that you can, slip this by. You were putting too much in your hands that you were not built to be able to handle. Period. Let me go back to the chat. So I'm sorry, Will. It took me forever and a year to answer that question. Graphic God had said something in the chat too. He said he share me every time. Hey, Graphic God, why ain't you a admin? Why ain't you a moderator on my channel? That's like that skit from the Chappelle show where Arsenio Hall is eating the cheese. Why did you tell me this damn cheese was that good? Like it was their fault. So yeah, thank you, Graphic God. I appreciate you, bro. But do y'all see what I'm saying? One's if you agree, two's if you don't agree. Three if you think I'm just wasting my time here. But with that being said, okay, so how do we address this? All right. First and foremost is an issue with messaging and communication to the hardcore. Simply that. I'm gonna share something with you guys. Again, we already talked. Let's do a couple things here. Okay. All right. Okay, I shared this before. Z had a question about a while ago about the art direction of the games. Oh, excuse me, that they had, and how that was troubling him. We don't see the AAA bangers as we coin them in Triple B. Triple B coined that. All right, he said he had the question that he had asked was what's up with the art direction. Phil's response was, no specific change to the ratings of games we built. If you're commenting on Luckies and Seas of Thieves back to back, that's just timing. We will build games for all gamers. State of Decay 2, Crackdown, or more mature. State of Decay 2 may be gory in some ways, but as far as mature in the quality of the content is what we're talking about, like a Mass Effect or Bioshock. We don't just equate AAA banger. We equate it to quality. Again, not arguing if State of Decay 2 was fun, but the Xbox of what brought us here was beyond fun. Fun was a staple, but we went above and beyond fun. Crackdown or more mature. Now, with that being said, again, this is the guy that's heading the gaming division. Looking at what is being reviewed today. And again, I'm not trying to be mean. Again, this is a discussion. Do you consider Crackdown the AAA banger, the mature content that you think about when you think about the Xbox pillars? And if your answer is no, then you got to think, why is it that this effort that was released, that's going to be released tomorrow, was put on the same echelon as Halo, Gears, and Forza? What does that say about those that might think that way? That they don't know what they don't know. And they got to move quickly to get the people that do know in the right spots. All right. Next thing. Yeah, they talked about, when they first moved Crackdown. We're very disappointed, but we want to get it to the level of quality that fans deserve. Mind you, I'm in the mindset of Z. Since Quantum Break, which got a bad shake, it did, but since Quantum Break, you have not had quality AAA material exclusively from Xbox, except for, or new. Well, let me see. You didn't have innovative, not familiar. Halo and Gears were good. They're in the top tier. Don't get me wrong. I think Halo and Gears are top tier for the community as a whole, especially Forza. But when I'm talking about I mean like brand new experiences. You haven't gotten that from Xbox since Quantum Break, and we used to get that regularly in the previous generations. What Quantum Break came out 2015 or 2016, this is 2019 now. We've never had a dry spell like this. All right, next thing. Somebody asked him, are you feeling pretty good about your upcoming lineup as we head into E3, Phil? This is the E3 of 2017. Yes, in another E3 review right now, I like the lineup. Again, your competition showing God of War, Spider-Man. And again, I don't expect you to say this lineup sucks, but don't flaunt it. You stay off social media, because then you're giving people false hopes. Okay, so this is an interesting one. All right. So, and this is where you're not understanding the communication of hardcore. So, as we know, There was the big whoop to do between Crab Gamer and Phil, and a lot of people thought that Phil got the best of this. But if you deep dive into this is telling. So Crab Gamer was upset that Phil was doing the Play Anywhere thing. And again, for a business model, I get why they're doing it. I get it. It makes a lot of sense. Microsoft is Windows. Windows is Microsoft. But what you also got to understand, too, is that you have a dedicated hardcore fan base that is based off a console. They don't want to play on PC. They don't want to deal with the intricacies of PC. And I get it as a PC gamer myself. And when you do things like this, you take away value from the console. You add more value to the PC. They already don't have to pay for online. They already don't have to pay for Xbox Live, I mean. So you have that dynamic. Then you're giving them all your exclusives. What is a developer's pull to add material to your console for those console-only gamers? What is their pull to do so? I mean, we talked a lot about UWP, and there were even those part of Windows Central that said UWP didn't come to fruition like we expected. And UWP would solve that problem, right? Hey, as long as you're going to put it out there on the Xbox store, it'll be available on an Xbox device anywhere or whatever. So here we go. It'll be, the UWP version of any game, any third-party game will be easily transferable, whether it's an Xbox Live PC, Xbox Live console, it'll be uniform. But UWP didn't pan out the way that a lot of people thought it would. So you're going to have situations where people will duck putting content out on Xbox. Hence, now these aren't the biggest examples, but this could grow and grow and grow. Hence, why Lawbreakers didn't come. Now you guys say Lawbreakers is dog crap. Okay, fine. And hence why a game ripe for the Xbox console likely didn't come, which was Warhammer Space Hulk Deathwing. That is a sci-fi shooter ripe for the Xbox console. It's on PlayStation. Why not Xbox? And you may see that grow more and more and more. So that's this gamer's concern. And you're doing it so the response to that is, I've said it over and over. We are focused on the best place to play for gamers, not about creating walls. Now, again, you may at first glance might think, okay, well, that was a wise response and a very accommodating response. But it's not good communication-wise to your pillar audience, which is your diehard console people. It's not how you have that dialogue. And then you follow it up with this. The one thing that I probably find a little distasteful in the discourse around games is the divisiveness that people try to build between platforms. It becomes more about what piece of plastic I own than the games I'm playing. Now, again, if you're looking at the surface of that, yeah, okay, I get it. You don't want to just tie yourself down to one specific piece of hardware you want to expand. But when you say it like that, you say it in a way where you are slighting the people that don't have the ability, don't have the know-how, don't have the desire to be on any of those other platforms. They're specifically on console. And I get why they don't game on those other consoles. Maybe they can. And to them, that's like saying it to somebody that is movement impaired. Well, I'm not so focused on these ramps, as far as you're moving around. We want people that come from everywhere to be able to access our building. So I'm not, yeah, there may be people that can only go up these ramps, but I'm not focused on that right now. I want to make sure that the back doors are open, that the side doors are open, that people can come in through the roof. You ramp people, we'll worry about you later. That's how it sounds to them. And I hear all this talk about diversity, but and again, the perception is that Microsoft is only cares about diversity as it relates to shapes and colors. Now, for wrong or for right, that is the perception. And perception is 9/10 of the law. Diversity is also diversity of thought and experience. So if you have somebody that not just out of choice, but out of necessity, can only gain using the console dedicated hardware experience, that's not how you cater your response. You have to show care to that. I get it. You have to make that move because this is what Satya wants. But so how do you do it better? I truly think that they need to have a hardcore gaming community director, as crazy as that sounds, who focuses on the AAA content and who also focuses on the console gamer. Now, I get it. You don't want to split your community up. But let me give you an example. Okay, so what I do at my work, there's other managers in my department. We may have a big staff meeting that because what I do is very specific, and it's very specialized. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, because I sure as hell don't get paid like it's specialized. But what I do is very specific and it's specialized. So because it's very specific and it's specialized, a lot of other people, including some of my bosses, don't understand how we get from point A to point Z. So a lot of times we have staff meetings and 80 to 90% of what's being presented in those staff meetings do not apply to me and my people. Now, it's good for me to be there for what we call business acumen, so I can understand, how the sausage is made. But at the end of the day, after that meeting is done, I need to huddle my people together that were with me at that meeting and say, okay, so this is what it means for us, and this is what how we got to work around these new changes. And in a situation, Microsoft, that you're going to rush in these two, let's just say if you're successful, it's not going to look good for you. It's not going to work for you if you slack those people that carried you here. You can't do that. You can't just jump off their shoulders and run and leave them behind after they've carried you out of a burning building. You can't do that. These are the people that still supported you when your content was lacking. So at the very least, perception 9/10 of the law, you need a hardcore community director. Someone who, after Major Nelson and all those other people do the Xbox, the Inside Xbox, which honestly is for the casuals, not for the hardcore persons, for the casuals. After that's done, then we have someone that has podcast people or whatever that does the quick huddle. Okay, AAA console people. Here's what this means to you, and this is how this is going to benefit you. And you show, and you carve out that material that's going to benefit us. It's not splicing out the community. It's just making sure that everybody is communicated to and everybody is catered to. At the end of the day, when I huddle my people together, it's for the betterment of the department. So we're successful. We want Xbox to be successful because we feel when Xbox was at its best, it was providing quality content that we couldn't get anywhere else. That's all we want. So we want to see you succeed, but we want to see you succeed and continue to give us the content and services that brought us here in the first place at the quality level that you've done before. So again, and I'll give you another example. Prime example. On the Inside Xbox, you guys covered The Division 2. And I'm not trying to be mean. That coverage of The Division 2 and the subsequent content coverage of The Division 2 was lackluster on Xbox's YouTube channel. It was lackluster. Streams everything. You were outdone by Gamer Tag Radio. A group of 3 guys split up in different regions of the country who have to do Patreons and stuff like that to get up the air tickets, and they're asking for donations, and they did a hell of a job. These are just 3 guys, the hell of a job, and covering the Division 2 better than the company that has the marketing rights. I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to get excited, but damn. You know what I'm saying? That can't happen. For a hardcore guy like myself and other people, you covering more of Sea of Thieves than you did Division 2, even though it's not exclusive, but you have the marketing rights. This is hardcore content. This is stuff coming to your system. Highlighted for us. That coverage was abysmal. Now, maybe it shouldn't have been widespread for Inside Xbox because you're trying to do quick hits of a lot of stuff and you want to focus on Sea of Thieves for your casual market. But again, you need to tack on to, not tack on. Please, I didn't mean that. Take that back. You need to add on content. That quick huddle with your hardcore console base. Also, what I think you need to do is your messaging got to get better and far as what you're trying to sell. Because here's what's happening. I know what's going on. You're trying to sell a community opposed to a product. What do I mean by that? Again, you're trying to sell a community opposed to a product. I mean by that is, if you look at my thumbnail is a picture of Phil from the DICE event. The one that got me worked up, where he was applauding Sony's games more than his. And it ain't about, if you like Sony games, I don't care about that. You know, I'm not that embedded here in this whole console war thing. No, I don't care. But you got to have faith in your own product, and you got to show more enthusiasm in your own product 24/7. That you are the face of Xbox, and you got to do that. I'm sorry. Not saying you ain't got to show enthusiasm for other stuff, but most of your enthusiasm has to be shown in your. It's just the way that it is. And you ain't got to be a fanboy to do that. With that being said, Xbox has made a severe focus on community. You know, these are the type of people that we want to bring in here. This is the type of stuff we want to get rid of. I don't like this. I find this, what was the word that he used? I find it distasteful. It sounds like that you're razor sharp, you're focused, and you're being accurate on the type of community that you want. Ain't no lies there. No, like, what's that mean? No lies detected there. But we're not getting the same transparency when it comes to the product. This is about games at the end of the day. It's about games at the end of the day. So that has to be first and foremost. Everything else is solidifies the games. So you got to get back in the business of selling games instead of community first. Community is part of the package. And yes, you want to have the guardrails up and stuff. But again, if you're going to focus on diversity and things like that, you got to also focus on diversity of thought. And again, perception is 9/10 of the law. Whether you're doing that behind the scenes or not, the perception is you aren't. You're trying to shut out the passion that people have by saying, we're going to talk to you through our feedback site. Nobody wants to talk to a feedback site. We see Mike, look, for all intents and purposes, we see Mike Ybarra complaining about his cable service and all that other stuff. Do you think that Mike Ybarra is sitting there sending his cable company or provider, whatever thing he's complaining about? You think he's sitting back in their feedback section to get it resolved? No, Mike Ybarra himself, an Xbox executive, is raising hell on Twitter to put the fire under someone's feet. Why don't you guys think that you deserve the same? So we got to get a little bit more. We got to get a less sensitive. We got to have more respect for diversity of thought, and we could still put guardrails up. Some of the truly toxic stuff, some of the racist stuff, some of the, the horrible stuff. That yes, let's try to get rid of that. Definitely. But the primary focus has to be on games. You can walk and chew gum too, but you can't market community more than you can product and services. Why do I want to come to a community that's a ghost town? No stores, nothing around for hundreds of miles. My house may be painted well, but there's nothing for me to partake in that I'll enjoy. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, I've done a lot of talking, and I said I was going to make this conversation. And I got a little excited. I didn't mean to. But I'm going to close out with this. Gamers, we also have to do our part 2. Hold on, let me slide. Okay. So we have to do our part 2, gamers. We got to continue to be vigilant, but we do have to be respectful to Xbox if we want them to turn things around. I do believe Xbox has to do this hardcore community outreach. They need to have virtual town halls and stuff like that where they're being transparent. They're talking to people. They're showing that they care. But at the same time, let's not get belligerent and curse them out and all this other stuff, because that's going to turn anybody off. You know what I mean? And we also got to understand that, let's just say if they are listening and it's showing in the end product, they're still going to have hiccups. So even if they had, let's be mindful of that. Nobody's perfect, okay? If Sony can get a pass after all of the crazy things that happened last generation and some of the crazy things that are still happening this generation, then we got to be mindful. We got to look at each situation one by one and do the same thing for Microsoft. That's if they're giving us what we want. And if they are giving us what we want, then let's not do the shameful job, me included, that we did with Quantum Break. We have to reward good behavior. We got a good game. When the Sony people say that you don't support their games, they're not lying. I get it that Quantum Break was not that sci-fi shooter that we were yearning for. I get that. But it was a good game. And we should have bought it. Because by us not buying it, look at what we're getting now. And I guarantee you that if we would have bought Quantum Break, if it would have been successful, the output that we received would look different. I guarantee it. So that's it. That's it. I just want, the output has to be better. And in order for the output to be better, you got to know what you don't know, Xbox. And in order for you to know what you don't know, you got to go to the people that can lay that foundation for you. A real community works together. A real community that doesn't just stand in line, look different, and allow and give you good posters and good pics and stuff like that. Again, I'm not trying to be mean. A community is about working together. And out of those that are built the community and those within the community, we all have to work together. And Microsoft, you got to be honest with yourself. Whether you admit it here or not, you got to be honest with yourself in retrospect. You have not worked with us in totality. We got to get beyond just shapes and colors. We got to focus on diversity of thought. There are a lot of mindful voices that have spoke out about this that were not rude, and they're just being ignored because they didn't hit a feedback button. And like I say, if that's your response, then tell Mike Ybarra to hit a feedback button when he has a complaint. You're not. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You can reach your strategy, you can be successful, but you have to do it in a way that is really inclusive. And inclusive, again, respects diversity of thought. And that's it from your boy MM2K. So let me do this. Let me stroll through the chat. My boy ODG, disgruntled gamer. Hey ODG, I'm gonna DM you or DM me, man. I want to get you on a podcast. You as we might be telling, I might be telling my age here, as Missy Elliott would say, you be hitting them with the he, bruh. Old disgruntled gamer says Microsoft's already handicapped themselves for the next generation with low consumer confidence. Exactly. It's market share. I mean, my mind share. And I, you know me, and I deeply apologize, guys. I really want to get through all these comments, but I got to go for work. I should have ended this podcast 7 minutes ago. Devil Shooter says Crackdown and mature shouldn't be in the same sentence. Crackdown was always marketed as mindless fun. Exactly. But that's where, I covered this in my last video, and I have a link to that below where I talked about the Crackdown 3 rage. When Microsoft runs into a situation where they elaborate on something that they didn't have a full grasp on, they get into their business babble, which isn't transparent. And let's be honest, it isn't honest, okay? And there's room for improvement on that. I saw Tamiko Dawes. Big up to Tamiko Dawes. Thank you for coming through again. I appreciate you, man. Very important point here. Agents of Mayhem did what Crackdown 3 is doing and got dogged out, but you want to defend this. So sad. No truer words have been spoken. And Tamiko, I think you may have seen, I don't know if you've seen Rand's video as well. Yeah. So here's the problem with Crackdown 3. Even though it may be fun, you put this as a pillar, as a potential pillar franchise, right? But here you had other entities that copied your formula, and they came out with products that were better than Crackdown. So whenever that happens, you're the one that pretty much pioneered this. You're supposed to come out better than them. Crackdown 3 is not better than Agents of Mayhem. Crackdown 3 isn't more robust or better than what do you call it? Saints Row 4, according to the homie Randolph Thor, which I implore you to please watch his video. Excellent video. And I would say, even though it's not a superhero game, as an open world game, it's not as diverse and dynamic and as innovative as Saints Row 2. This is 2019. You're Microsoft, for crying out loud. When people think technical helms, they think Microsoft is in that discussion. How come we're seeing it everywhere except in the games? So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out here today. I appreciate all of y'all. Thank you so much. King Reaper, Mark Woodland in the chat. ODG, like I said, DM me, bro. Devil Shooter, D Almighty God. Mark Woodland, big ups to you too, man. Tamiko Dawes with the excellent comment. Everybody got excellent comments. D Almighty. Will Sinks, you know what I'm saying? Graphic God, thank you, sir. Yeah, please, you gotta help a brother out, man. I'm struggling out here in these YouTube streets, man. I need that graphic God pixie dust, man. Help me out. And Cyrus Burke. I appreciate King X Player. What up? Power of the Cloud. Hey, appreciate all of y'all. Mac, thank you, Mac. Anybody I missed by accident, I deeply apologize. But as always, thank you for joining me for this. And as always, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day.